Hey, it's Becky from Patchwork Posse, as well as Patchworkers Plus, my online quilt group. Today, we are going to sew a baby blanket just using 2 fabrics. I'm also going to be showing how to make a mitered corner, which allows one of the fabrics to peek through to the front, and it's not as hard as you think. So I have my 2 pieces of fabric cut and ready to go. You are going to need one piece that is going to be smaller than the other piece. You can decide how large you want that outside border to be, but in the description I've got a link to the blog post that will give you the measurements that I'm using, so I could use 1 yard of fabric and then the other one will fit it. So this blanket is not necessarily square, it is a rectangle, but I really wanted to use the yardage instead of trimming it way down. So the first thing you're going to do after you have the correct sizes is you are going to fold each side in half, and you are going to either place a pin on it or mark it with a pencil. So if you just crease it with your finger and then mark it with a pencil, that's erasable. Or if you just mark it in your 1/4 inch seam, then you'll be able to not see it after you sew your project together. So I'm going to fold this again in half, crease this, and I'm going to make a mark right where that crease was. Then I'm going to fold this again in half the other direction, crease this and make a mark. And my last side, fold it in half, crease it, and make a mark. The next thing you're going to do is repeat this with the second fabric. So I'm going to set this first one aside and repeat it for this one. Once you have all your sides marked, you are going to find one of your marks. You are going to find the mark on the one fabric, find the mark on the other fabric, and you are going to line those up, and you are going to pin it together. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull this out. As you can see, one piece is going to be longer than the other, and that's exactly what we want. We're just going to stick a couple pins in to keep this in line. So one in the middle, one at the end. We're going to repeat that with the other side. Going to put 2 pins in here again. The next thing you're going to do is repeat that for each side. So I am going to not pay attention to what's happening in the corners over here. I am going to find my mark on the center, find my mark on the center of this fabric, and I'm going to pin them together. And again, I'm going to fluff this out, lining up the fabric edges, and as you can see, I've got this big corner over here that's floppy. That is exactly what you want to see. So I'm just going to pin in the center as well as right on the end. Do the same for the next side. Now we are going to take this to this machine and we are going to stitch one side at a time, and you are going to stop sewing 1/4 inch before the end. So if you need to make marks on this, you can, just to remind you that that is your stop spot. But you're going to be sewing from 1/4 inch from this corner all the way to the other side and stop 1/4 inch. And then when you start the next side, you again start 1/4 inch from the edge and sew to the end, stopping 1/4 inch again from that end. Because this is made pillowcase style, you will want to leave an opening for turning. It doesn't have to be super large, just large enough for your hand to get in there. So go ahead and mark like a 3-inch spot that you are going to stop and start at, and leave this area open for turning. Because you've pinned all the sides, it actually sews up pretty quick. So now we need to address these corners, which are super floppy. So this is what you want your corners to look like. You want to see that stop and start 1/4 inch from both sides. And this is what's going to give you your miter corner when you turn it right sides out. So before we turn it right sides out, we are going to make some marks and sew a few more seams. So what you're going to do is take your blanket, you're going to take your fabric and you're going to fold it over. Now, what I have on the top is my larger piece, and I have got my smaller piece inside. And so I'm folding it over and I'm lining up these sides just like this. You can kind of rub it out, make sure you don't have any crinkles in there. The next thing you're going to do is line up your ruler to the top edge, and this is the folded edge. So I've got my opening and raw edges down here. We are going to line our ruler up with the folded edge at the top. I'm going to just watch the line on my ruler to make sure it is lined up nicely with that fold. And I'm going to line this right side of the ruler up to where I stopped 1/4 inch and stopped sewing. So right along here, we are going to make a mark. So I'm just going to use a pencil, or you can use a chalk line, but you're going to want to mark this. All right. So now that we have this drawn, we are going to pin this to secure it. You're going to stitch directly on that drawn line. What I want you to do before you cut this is I want you to kind of turn that one corner right sides out and make sure that it's doing what you want it to do. You don't want to cut this and find out that it's wrong, and then you have wasted a bunch of fabric and it's just frustrated. So what you're going to do is turn it right sides out, and this is what you want to see. You want to see a seam from the corner of your inside fabric going out to the corner of your outside fabric. You want to see that at an angle, and you want to see that naturally it kind of pulls itself to where it is supposed to sit. So what I can do is push this back inside, because I'm not done with the other corners yet, but I really want to make sure that this is correct before moving on, because you don't want to mark all 4 of them and then find out that you've folded the wrong piece over and that it is incorrect. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to move to the next corner, and I'm going to repeat the same process. So I'm going to fluff this out a little bit. Going to fold over the top. So I'm lining up again my raw edges together. And now I have a fold across the top. It's all laying down nicely, and I can get my ruler. I'm going to line up one of the lines on my ruler to the top folded edge. I'm going to scoot the ruler over until it hits that stop start location, and I am again going to draw on the fabric. I'm going to pin it to secure it, and I'm going to go ahead and sew on the drawn line. If you want to, you can go ahead and check this corner again, because this is a new corner and I want to make sure before I cut any of my corners that it's correct. So I'm going to hold on to this because this is the one I want to grab. I got my hand in the opening, and I am going to grab this corner and pull it just so there's enough of it right sides out. I'm going to check that naturally it wants to lay like this, and I've got a seam from the corner of the inside fabric to the corner of the outside fabric. This looks good. I can push it back inside, and I can do another corner. So you're going to just repeat this for all 4 corners. I'm using the Sew Tights ruler, so this is really helping it all stay in place really nicely. So because we have checked these corners, we can go ahead and trim off this excess. So we are going to trim it 1/4 inch past. Now that we have our 4 corners trimmed, we are going to now turn it right sides out. So just stick your hand in here, grab the farthest corner, and start pulling it to right sides out. You'll need your iron for the next step because we are going to press this really well. And then we're going to give it a sew all the way around to close the opening as well as secure kind of that miter layout. So when you throw this in the wash, it's not going to shift or move and get out of place. So I've got it turned right sides out, but I really need to work on these corners. So you are going to stick your hand right inside, and you're just going to use your finger, and you're just going to push those corners out. There's not a whole lot of fabric or bulk, so your finger should work. If you need something a little more pointier, that's fine, but for the most part, I just use my finger on these. All right, the next thing you are going to do is iron this. So we're going to kind of just fluff it out. I like to just hold it up and give it a good shake on each side, and it should kind of naturally make your border equal on both sides. As you can see, this is the opening, and it's already laying flat and nice. So what we're going to do is just give this a good press now. I'm going to start at one of the corners, and I'm just going to kind of play with it with my finger. I'm going to make sure it looks nice. And then we are going to just give this a really good press. You want to make sure that this seam lays really nice and flat. You don't want this to be rolled over. So if you need to push this out, go right ahead. I'm just going to keep turning this, making sure I don't have any bulk, and then again giving this a good press. Then we're coming upon the next corner. So again, I just kind of finger press this out, making sure that the corner lays flat. If you want to, you can really fiddle with this to make sure that all the sides are equal. I don't worry about it too much. I'm not like into perfection. And so I just go with how it kind of lays out. When I give it a good fluff, naturally it's going to kind of push around its own. And this is the opening right here. We're just going to make sure this lays nice and flat right on top. Don't want my iron to get stuck in there, so I'm just going to press it right on top of it. So the last step we have is to stitch around. You're going to stitch right on top this border fabric 1/8 of an inch from this seam. This will secure all the layers, so both layers, so it doesn't twist when you put it in the laundry, and it will also close this opening. So your first stitch, you do want 1/8 of an inch. If you want to go back and do a double stitch, you know, a secondary stitch just past that, that would be fine as well. You just don't want your initial stitch to be too far out or it won't catch that opening, and that's really what you want to happen. All right, so we are all finished. This is what it is going to look like on the back side. You're just going to see one stitch on the back. And then on the side that has the two fabrics, you are going to see just your final stitch, 1/8 of an inch on that last border. You can decide to use coordinating thread or contrasting thread. It really doesn't matter. You can make it super cute if you'd like. But this is finished. Very easy, very quick, simple, and that's how you get that fancy mitered corner with 2 pieces of fabric to make a really cute baby blanket.